Happy May 32nd, everybody! I really wanted to have this video out by the end of May, and unfortunately I just barely ended up missing the deadline. So let's all agree that today is May 32nd and not actually June 1st. Well, here it is, guys, probably my most anticipated video so far. To finish off this month, I decided to ask you guys for your original Fakemon ideas, and you guys definitely delivered. I had so many suggestions that I couldn't fit them all in this video, so there will be some honorable mentions, some will be featured in future videos, and 10 will get full-length features in this one. This is the most Fakemon I've made for one video and will be the longest video on my channel so far. Before I get too far into it, I wanted to talk a bit about the future of my channel. So I really want the S.s.Anne region to be amazing, and there's some elements I feel like I missed in my first 3 videos. So until the end of summer, I will be posting challenge videos only. This way I can spend more time really getting the S.s.Anne region right. I'll be either rebooting or making a recap at the end of summer, so I hope you guys will be patient with me as I work it out. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's get back into today's video. I wanted to try some new things in this video. As I get better at art and editing, I want the channel to continue evolving with it. So I have made some small changes to my dex pages, and I thought it could be fun to try showing a bit of the drawing process. I'll go ahead and apologize now for how chaotic it gets sometimes. I jump around a lot and I freehand my art, so if something isn't working for me, I will just move to something else till I feel inspired. Thank you to everyone who submitted your ideas. I'm glad you gave me a chance to draw your mons for you. So before I show you guys which Fakemon I chose to get full features, I wanted to bring up some honorable mentions that I drew out but couldn't fit in the video as full features. I had 2 different people ask if I would draw their starters for them. Reddit user BroadCheesecake5400 requested these 3 starters, and because it would feel weird to feature only one, I had to make them honorable mentions. Though I'm not the best at starters, and some of these were done when I first started making Fakemon, I think they aren't too bad. The other was Reddit user OKSorbet, who requested these guys. The final 2 honorable mentions are Bouvern, which was suggested by my fellow Fakemon artist ShadowB28. The only reason Bouvern is an honorable mention is because the concept felt pseudo-legendary to me, so I made an evolution for Bouvern that will be featured instead. Also, Sensei Wu requested a clarinet fairy squid based on Squidward, so I hope this design delivers on that. And the final honorable mention is Lemonade. Those who've been following my channel know all about Lemonade, but it was technically requested by Universe of Many, and even though I already talked about it in my 100 subscriber special, I just had to show it off one more time. I really love this design, and I'm glad Universe of Many requested I go ahead and make it. Like I said, if you don't see your Pokemon in today's video, don't lose hope, okay? Alright, let's see the first Fakemon in today's video. The first Fakemon in today's video was suggested by commenter badnoman3263, and you know I had to make it water fairy type. So of course I started off with the head, as that seemed like the natural place to start. I gave it this oval shape and added on these 2 big, buggy eyes on either side with these large, adorable pupils. Next I moved on to the antenna. I wanted the antenna to look kind of like a mix between a bug and a shrimp, and because fairy shrimp have these little feeler things on their head, I thought it would be a great way to incorporate that. After that I started designing the body. The body isn't anything too extreme, it's just a nice, simple shrimp shape. And for the tail, because shrimp tails are already kind of heart-shaped and it's a fairy type, I made the tail heart-shaped. I also wanted to include these adorable little frills because fairy shrimp have these little frilly thingies. After that, I just added on some legs and cleaned it up a little bit and gave it this cute little smile. After that, I went ahead and filled in the pupils and started working on the colors. Not every Pokemon in this video will get all the way to the color stage when it comes to the drawing because I wanted all of the drawing videos to be roughly the same length. But because I was particularly inspired with this design and I was able to accomplish it really quickly, the only way to keep it even was to include the coloring portion. So of course I made it pink because, well, I love pink Pokemon and fairy types are always an excuse for me to have more. After I finished coloring it in, the eyes just weren't quite cute enough for me, so I decided they needed to have a little bit of pink as well. So here is the final design. This is Schwim Pink. I'm so happy with this Fakemon design, and I'm so glad that Badnoman suggested it. It's just so cute. I could see this being a 2-stage line with this being the first stage. For the abilities, I went with Filter and Hydration, and the hidden ability is Sturdy. I like making the abilities thematic with my designs, and after my research, these were the ones I thought worked best. I figured for the size go super tiny and cute, so it's only 4 inches. This makes it the same size as Joltik, Sinistea, Cutiefly, and other tiny cuties. I talked with Bad Omen and they suggested to evolve via max friendship, so that's what I did. I think this design came out pretty great, but we have a lot of Pokemon to see, so let's keep going. The next Fakemon in today's video was suggested by Fakemon artist Novaz, who requested that I draw their regional variant for Impidimp, inspired by Jesters. They were nice enough to provide me with lots of reference material, including this awesome Polish painting. After I had drawn Impidimp's general head shape, I started working on some of the smaller details such as Impidimp's teeth and tongue. Next, I moved on to the ears. I thought Impidimp's ears would be a great way to include the Jester hat theme into the design. So I drew them right side up first and then flipped them upside down so I could make sure that they would have the right size and portions for Impidimp's head. Once I was happy with the ears, all I had to do was add a third point to the top of Impidimp's head. Then I added in these cute little circular bell designs to really drive that Jester vibe home. Next, it was time for the pose, and I really wanted this regional variant to feel really active and alive, like it was dancing back and forth from side to side like a Jester does. Once I was happy with the pose, it was time to move on to Impidimp's mask. I really liked Impidimp's original mask design, and I thought it would incorporate really well into this one too. At this point I realized I forgot to draw the other arm, so I went ahead and did that really quick. I almost forgot to mention that me and Novaz decided that dark fighting would be a great typing for this regional variant. I just had to finish the tiny details and go to coloring, which wasn't too difficult thanks to Novaz, who provided me with reference material for what they were looking for. Now let's see the final design. This is Novaz's regional Impidimp. I really like this concept and I think it's a really inspired variant for Impidimp. As you know, I've done a lot of variants on this channel already, and this is definitely in my top 5. And I'll be drawing the other evolutions, ASAP. For the abilities, I kept Prankster because it worked so well with the design, and I gave it Guts because of the fighting type. The hidden ability, I went with Intimidate. The reason I chose fighting type is because I was partially inspired by those Jester hand puppets that would beat each other up. It evolves at the same level as regular Impidimp since I didn't see a need to change that, and it's the same height as well. I always enjoy making new regional variants for Pokemon, and I'm really glad I got to make this one. Alrighty, let's see the next Pokemon. This Fakemon is especially exciting because it was suggested by YouTuber and Fakemon artist Infamous Trainer. He used a random emoji generator to suggest a Pokemon that was a snake that was ice and poison type. I initially wanted the body to look like a pile of snow with the head being kind of like a snowball on top, but I really didn't like the way it was looking, so I decided to scrap that and go with a whole different body shape entirely. So to fix the pose, I decided to uncurl the body, and to be honest, I'm really happy with this change. I think it looks a lot better. I will go back and eventually adjust the body a little bit more, but at this point I was happy with the overall shape. Next, I added these cute little horns that look kind of like cat ears. I figure since ice types tend to be a little bit spiky, an ice snake could have these adorable cat-eared horns. After that, I decided to work on the eyes and overall expression of the Pokemon. Since it's a snake and it's ice poison type, I wanted to make sure that it had a more fierce expression and leaned more towards the aggressive side. I did initially have these little fangs and tongue, but I decided to not include them in the final design. When I started drawing this Fakemon design, I didn't really have a solid concept in mind, and I think at this point in the video it kind of shows. I started jumping around and trying out different details and aspects until I found the ones that I liked the most. But when I was lucky enough to get a suggestion from Infamous Trainer for this video, I knew I had to get started on it right away. I think this was a really cool and unique concept, so let's see the final result. This is S.s.Anne. So like I said, I made a few more design changes before I finalized this Pokemon. For the abilities, I went with Merciless, and for the hidden ability, I went with Snowcloak. Since most snake Pokemon evolve, I wanted to make sure that S.s.Anne would evolve as well, so it'll evolve at level 34. I'd totally be surprised if you haven't heard of Infamous Trainer already, but if you haven't, make sure you check him out after this video. He makes really good content. Well, there's a lot of Pokemon to talk about today, so let's keep moving. This next Pokemon was suggested by commenter Mr. McGuffin, and I instantly thought Fairy Fire type. When I was looking for references for Coco Lava's design, I found this picture and I was instantly inspired. I could really see the Pokemon potential in this photo, so I used it as a reference for Coco Lava's overall body shape. I gave Coco Lava this big open mouth design because I wanted to use the tongue as a way to include the molten lava chocolate filling. I went back and forth on the eyes for a while, and in the end I decided I had to change Coco Lava's mouth shape so that I could better fit the eyes that I chose. It took a few different attempts to get a shape that I was happy with, but in the end I really like what I came out with. Molten chocolate lava cake is probably in my top 10 favorite desserts, and I don't think I ever would have thought to turn it into a Pokemon without the suggestion. That's what makes this video so cool. I get to make a bunch of Pokemon that I might never have thought of. At this point, I was happy with the overall design, so all I had to do was add in all the little details to help make it look extra fluffy and well-baked. Then all I had to do was add colors and shading, and for the color palette, I decided to go with a nice rich chocolatey brown. And as you'll see, I kind of messed up during this part, but it was a really easy fix. I'm super excited to show you guys the final design, so here it is. This is Coco Lava. I'm really proud of this design, and I think it's just adorable. So for the abilities, I decided to go with Gooey and Hospitality, and the hidden ability is Well Baked. I felt like these really fit the chocolate lava cake vibe. I decided to not make Coco Lava evolve because even though I had an idea or two, I didn't really love any of them. But I do reserve the right to change my mind in the future. For the size, I wanted to keep Coco Lava tiny, so it's the only 5-inch Pokemon. Fellow Fakemon artist Liam suggested a snow globe. So for this concept, I went with Ice Fairy type. I really like the idea of a snow globe Pokemon, so thanks Liam for the suggestion. To start off this Pokemon design, I made a circle for the globe and then did my best to draw what resembled a snow globe base. Once I was happy with the overall shape, I had to decide what I wanted to put inside the globe. And while I was thinking about snow globes, I started thinking about snowballs, so that's what I did. I made a smaller circle to go inside the snow globe for the snowball, and I made these lines to look kinda like snow. I really wanted the snowball inside the snow globe to be the actual Pokemon, so I gave it these cute little nub arms. At this point in the design, I thought it would be really cute if I gave it this slushy, drippy hairstyle, so I set to drawing that. Once I had gotten it just right, it was time to do the eyes. And this goes on for a little while. I just really couldn't get the stars to look quite right, and I had to try a few different things out till I found something that I liked. I like the idea of this Pokemon being the first snowball of the first snow forever preserved inside a snow globe. Once I finally figured out what I was doing with the eyes and settled on something that I really liked, it was just time to add in all those last little details, and I just love the sleepy expression of this Pokemon. And all that was left was to color it. So let's take a look at the final design. This is Suvenice. For the abilities, I decided to go with Refrigerate and Cute Charm. For the hidden ability, I went with Ice Body. I'm really happy with this final design. I think it's absolutely adorable and kinda lazy, and I love it for that. At first I had decided that Suvenice wouldn't evolve, but I think I will eventually draw an evolution for it after all. For the size, Suvenice is still relatively small at 1 feet 2 inches. I think this is kind of just a video of minis. This Pokemon was suggested by fellow Fakemon artist Go Play Outside, who is one of my biggest supporters. And okay, fine, I'll admit it, I'm a nerd. From tabletop RPG to video games, I really like content that has mimics in it, including mimic Pokemon, so this was a really fun design. I started by drawing the overall shape of the body, and I made sure to give it these really big fangs so it would really bring out that mimic vibe. Making a wallet that has Pokemon proportions was a little bit of a challenge for me, but I think I was able to accomplish it in the end. Once I was happy with the overall design, it was time to get started on the tongue. Go Play Outside had mentioned that Waller's tongue was vibricated and also made out of money. I think most media portrayals of mimics have their tongues sort of flopped out of their mouth, and I thought that this money tongue could be a great way to include that in this design. As I was drawing Waller's tongue, I imagined what it would be like for Pokemon trainers in-game to think they found a lost wallet only to encounter Waller. Once I was finished drawing Waller's tongue, all I had to do was add in the little details like the eye and nostrils and add color. I kinda like Pokemon that look like items in-game, and I think it's a really fun random encounter. And I think Waller would definitely fit in with the rest of them. Here's the final design. This is Waller. For the abilities, I decided to go with Super Luck and Vital Spirit. And for the hidden ability, I went with Moxie. I didn't really think that I could come up with an evolution for a wallet mimic Pokemon, but Go Play Outside said that they might come up with one, and I'm really excited to see that. For the size, I also kept Waller pretty small, so it's about 6 inches. See, I told you this was a video of minis. There's still a few more Pokemon to get into today, so let's keep going. This Pokemon was suggested by commenter Mr. Stableye. I honestly didn't know that when hummingbirds fight it was called jousting, which was really cool to learn. I started by drawing this potato shape, and I used the beak to decide the pose. I also went ahead and did some line work for a helmet because when I think jousting, I think knights. I wanted the wings to be small but not too small because hummingbirds have small wings. And after struggling for a bit, I did eventually just move the entire design and gave myself a little more room to draw. And that really seemed to work. Next, I wanted to add this curled plumage to the top of the head because it worked really well for knights and hummingbirds. I wanted the tail to be really long and dramatic so the design would be more dynamic. I really like hummingbirds and I think they're super pretty, and I think it's kinda cool that they're just a touch medieval. And that was the main focus of my design. I wanted it to be both really pretty and to also look a little bit intimidating and kind of medieval. After I finished adding the feet, I went around the body adding in little feather details. I tried a few different patterns until I found the one that I liked best. Finally, it was time for the eyes. Like with some of the Pokemon in this video, I did struggle a little bit with the eyes, but in the end, I think they're very powerful and mischievous and a little bit cute. I did try making them look like they were part of a helmet, but that just wasn't vibing for me, and I'm really glad that I did change it. This was surprisingly one of the easier Pokemon to color. This is Hummy-War. I hope the final design really brings out that flying steel typing. For the abilities, I decided to go with Inner Focus and Mirror Armor, and for the hidden ability, I went with Infiltrator. I decided to keep Hummy-War single stage, and that's why it's statted the way it is. For the size, I went with 2 feet 4 inches. This Pokemon was suggested by fellow Fakemon artist Shadow B28. Since this is the second stage evolution of Boovern, the first thing I wanted to work on was the head. I wanted to make sure that I incorporated that skull aspect really well into this design. After that, I drew out the basic shape of how I wanted the body to be and added on these horn-like ghostly tendrils. As I was designing this Pokemon, I had to go back a few times to work on the skull and head shape. After that, I decided to work on the body shape a little bit more. Then I started working on the wing, and I went ahead and added in the arms. I really like these arms. I think they're super cute and they work really well for this design. I went ahead and lined out where I wanted the belly pattern to be, and I started working on the body shape again. I wanted it to be a little more slender and ethereal looking. Then I went ahead and copied the wing and put it into the position I wanted it to be. I blended them in with the body, and at this point I started to really mess with the head shape. I just really wanted to make sure that I got it right. I've actually asked Shadow B28 for some tips on a few of my designs before, and since they've been so nice to help me, it makes me really happy that I got to draw this Fakemon for them. Once I was finally happy with the skull and head shape, I started just adding in all of the little details and sort of expanding off of the patterns that we saw in Boovern. I've never drawn a pseudo-legendary line before, and this was definitely a challenge, but I had a lot of fun doing it. And I'll have to draw the final evolution sometime soon. Okay, let's see how it turned out. This is Tearworm. I talked things over with Shadow B28, and he said that Boovern was giving big worm-wyvern vibes, so that's why we went with the name Tearworm. For the abilities, we settled on Clear Body and Manifest, and for the hidden ability, I suggested Protean. This way I could give Boovern and Tearworm access to Dragon-type moves, and with Protean, they could become Dragon-type. Tearworm will evolve at level 52 and is 4 feet tall. This Fakemon was suggested by Reddit user Weston Thomas 312. Things are gonna go fast on this one. It ended up being a much more complicated design than I expected. I started out with the head and overall body shape of the Pokemon. While discussing this design with Weston Thomas, he mentioned that he had imagined it being curled around a crystal ball, and I really thought that would work really well with this design, so I wanted to make sure I included that in the pose. I wanted this Pokemon to have a long and curvy tail, but I wasn't really satisfied with the initial pose. It looked okay, but it wasn't quite what I was going for, so I did decide to go ahead and change it. I wanted this Pokemon's design to feel mythic, and I thought a way to do that was to make it really holding on to that crystal ball, as if it was the most important thing in the world to it. So I decided to curve the tail around it, and I'm really glad I decided to make this change because I think it looked a lot better in the end. I decided to go ahead and make some adjustments to the body shape because I wanted it to be a little bit chubbier and feel really young and cute. And because I jump around a lot with my art, I went ahead and started working on the tail again. Alms are a lot like axolotls, but they don't really have eyes, so even though this Pokemon looks like it has eyes, those little lines aren't eyes. It's just a pattern on the side of its head. At this point, I'm just going over the design and adding in any of the little details that I had initially thought about when I was coming up with this Pokemon's design. Weston Thomas mentioned adding a third eye pattern to the middle of the forehead, so I gave it this third eye gem. This is Divinolm. It would be really hard for me to pick favorites in this video, but if I absolutely had to, Divinolm would have to be pretty high on my list. I really love this design, and since it's my first mythic Pokemon, I'm really happy with it. Since it's a mythic, I just gave it one ability, Protean. For the purpose of this video, it won't evolve because it's a mythic Pokemon. And for the size, I decided to go with 1 foot 7 inches. The final Pokemon was suggested by commenter Getty Shaw. Since they requested a rock-type bat, I thought I would switch it up by making it rock-ground type. The first thing I did was started designing the body. I wanted it to look kind of like a clump of mud, that way it could more easily blend into cave walls. Next, I did my best to outline a crystally diamond shape for the head. After that, I started working on the other features like the feet and wings. I wanted the wings to be small and sharp and kind of gem-like, that way it looked like it wasn't meant for flying, but more for climbing. This is another one that I struggled with a lot. I even ended up sketching out a few different concepts, but I didn't really like any of them. When it came to the eyes, I wanted them to not only fit well with the gem shape of the head, but I also wanted them to kind of have an ornery expression. Once I had a general outline for where I wanted them, I started working on the ears. I actually like when newer Pokemon go outside the norm for what we would generally expect, and I think a bat that isn't flying type would actually be pretty cool. At this point, I just sort of bounced around, adding in little final details and trying different things. Choosing a color palette was surprisingly easier than the design itself, and though it may not have been the easiest mon I've ever drawn, I'm actually pretty happy with it. So let's take a look at that final design. This is Gembat. Sorry I changed the name. For the abilities, I decided to go with Solid Rock and Magic Bounce, and for the hidden ability, I went with Rockhead. I actually think this design has a lot of room to evolve, so Gembat will evolve at level 30. And for the size, I went with 2 feet 4 inches. And that's the final Pokemon that I gave a full feature to for the May I Draw Your Fakemon challenge video. Thank you guys so much for all the Fakemon submissions. I wouldn't be here without you guys, and I really appreciate it. I didn't expect to have so many submissions for this video, and I'm still a little bit shocked. I'm really glad you guys like my artwork, and I look forward to growing and learning with you guys. I guess in a way this video was my way of saying thanks. I've learned a lot from the Fakemon community, and you guys have been really nice and helpful and accepting, and I really appreciate that. I'm really curious to see who everyone's favorite Fakemon is from today's video, so let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I wouldn't want you to miss out on any of my awesome Fakemon ideas. Until next time.